It's November's Minecraft Origins Explained. Today I've got 10 cool and awesome origins that were posted in the Origins Discord server in the month of November that I'm yet to cover in their own full video. This is effectively just a brief overview, some really cool origins that I recommend you should check out. Of course, all these are going to be available in the Origins Discord server, which again, as always, is going to be linked down below. The first origin comes from the user known as 𝓵𝓷𝓷𝓴𝓼, known as Spiritual Mage. Now this is an interesting origin, as it's mainly meant to be a space-themed origin that's kind of weak in any form of close range fighting. But probably my favorite feature about this is that you can now play with portals. Now you're thinking with portals, my dudes. That's a bad joke. I'll walk myself out of the room. But yeah, basically, with your use of your primary ability, you can place a portal in front of you, and then you can hold shift and then press your primary ability button again to use your secondary portal. It's effectively Portal in Minecraft without using the portal mod, and by using only a data pack, it's complicated, don't worry about it. In a secondary thing, you've also got the ability to block any form of projectiles using an ability. You can also summon in black holes of various different sizes, depending on how long you let it charge after you press your secondary ability. Basically, you press your secondary ability, you let it charge for however long you want. You can tell by the black bar how much it's charged up. The more charge it has, the bigger the black hole, the more it's going to do. And overall, it's very useful and pretty interesting to say the least. The next collection of origins come from the user known as VioletCHR. Now, I didn't intentionally put 4 of their origins on here purposefully. I kind of thought I saw 2 of the ones that I put on here. Although if those are hers, I'll try to avoid her ones from the further point of this, without realizing the fact that I already had 2 others on there that were from her. So here we are. But basically, her and then another origin creator, which we'll talk about a little later when we get to one of his origins, have put out a lot of really cool concept origins over the past month. So let's roll through a few of the ones that she's put out. First off, we've got the 𝓵𝓷𝓷𝓴𝓼. Living between the dark and the light, 𝓵𝓷𝓷𝓴𝓼s pool their powers from the afterlife. This is a 2-impact origin. Basically, the concept of this origin is to pretty much soul collect. You collect souls by killing mobs. These souls become wraths every time you do kill any form of mob. Let's say you kill most of the passive mobs, any mob that's got less than 15 hit points in total, you'll gain an Endermite Wrath. These are going to be pretty much things you'll see that are black transparent mobs that everyone can see, but you can't attack, they can't attack you, but they'll also attack anything that you attack, making you deal extra damage to other things that you're attacking. Any form of middle range health mobs, you'll end up with a skeleton wraith, which do not have bows, they'll still use their hands to hit people with. And then if you kill anything high health, such as an iron golem, you'll gain an enderman wraith, which are very powerful. Though keep in mind that if you have an enderman wraith and you make an endermite wraith, the enderman wraith will immediately kill the endermite wraith, so it's very interesting to keep in mind there. But effectively, the more powerful mobs you kill, the more damage that you're able to deal to other powerful mobs. Keep in mind though, they can also kill the wraiths that you've created, so it's a little bit of an interesting thing, but overall an amazing concept. The next origin from this user is known as 𝓵𝓷𝓷𝓴𝓼. This is a very interesting origin. This does require an extra resource pack, so you have to keep that in mind whenever you're finding this origin. You need the resources for it, as well as it does change something very massive. It changes your hunger bar into a wrath bar. Basically, with your wrath, it will act exactly like a hunger bar. If you go below 3 wrath rings, it will just make it so you can't sprint in any way, shape or form. If it drops to 0, you'll fade into nothingness and then die. Food doesn't refill this wrath, and it doesn't deplete normally. The only way it depletes is by use of your abilities, and it's a bit interesting of how that works. Now, another thing is that you can't exactly leave the nether normally. One of the things you can do though is if you find a gilded blackstone, you can right click it and craft a special totem that allows you to craft certain items. Various different items that are only available in the overworld, such as enchanting tables, shiny quartz, which is effectively your replacement to 𝓵𝓷𝓴𝓼, as well as a way to get towards the end dimension, and so many other little bits and pieces along those lines. This massively changes up how the game works entirely, and can really give you an entirely different playthrough. So it's another one that, yeah, you should really check out. Next we have the 𝓵𝓷𝓷𝓴𝓼 from the same Discord user, and this is a far more simpler origin comparison. Effectively, you're a piglin brute who's been exiled from the Bastions and somehow found a way into the overworld via a lucky portal. You still have your golden axe, which is a very highly damaging affecting weapon, and you also have the ability to fling yourself up into the air and slam yourself down, causing a bit of an earthquake, making most mobs and people around you to drop their weapons, and giving them a special enchantment that makes them a little more powerful for you to use. Though another thing to keep in mind is that any mobs that try to fight you are more likely to randomly pick up an enchanted axe or an enchanted weapon of some sorts, though it won't be a Neverite weapon of any form, and effectively just makes it a little bit different. It's not as game changing as the previous origin, but it's still another interesting origin idea nevertheless. Then we have Ceramic Soldier, 2-impact origin that comes from the same creator. This is one of their first ones, which, by the way, this being your first origin created at the start of the month, and you create several awesome ones throughout the time frame of the month. I'm honestly looking forward to what you create next, but basically this is a very simple one. You're a terracotta soldier that with the use of dyed terracotta, you can transform yourself into one of 5 different forms that have various different abilities benefiting you in many different ways, allowing you to change to adapt to whatever situation that you need to adapt to. One thing to keep in note, you're meant to spawn a wooden Badlands, but that seems to break every now and then. From what I've gathered, when I decided to use a kill command, it kind of broke the world and stuff along those lines. So be very, very wary with that one. The spawning kind of breaks some things, but it's honestly a really, really cool origin overall. Next, we have Phil the Builder with the origin known as the Spiritualist. This origin is honestly a really cool origin. This origin gives you the ability to bring mobs such as tamed wolves, tamed cats, and villagers back from the dead. Now, unfortunately, this will only ever work on the mobs that have died after you've installed the data pack for this origin, but anything beyond that can be respawned by simply creating an altar, which is effectively a cross made of Neverite with the edges surrounded with cobblestone and a soul sand in the middle of the cross itself. You light that up, you activate the connection to the graveyard. When you kill a villager right next to the altar, it will transfer you to the graveyard. Don't worry, this villager you just killed can be respawned in this graveyard. Effectively what you can do in here is if you go up to the graveyard itself, it's subtly confusing at first, but it kind of makes sense once you think about it for a moment. All the mobs that have died will be sorted from the first guy in front of you down the row. Now, in order to get a mob back, you want to go to the back of the cross and there'll be a button. You hit that button and it'll spawn a mob identical to the one that died. Then you just right click on that mob and you'll start to carry it. And then you take it back to the entrance and it'll teleport you back to the overworld with this mob. It is honestly a really cool origin. There are some little things, but it mostly works perfectly fine and it's really, really cool. Mainly the explanation could be slightly better to make it make more sense, to let you know that, hey, there's a button on the back of the crosses, the graves to hit, but other than that, it's a really cool and very functional origin. Next we have an origin from Not Pog, a guy who's I've made review of an origin of theirs before, the Omnigazer, and this one we've got an origin known as the Elven Mage. Basically, you're a magic man with this origin. You start off with a few books as well as a bunch of amorous shards. Basically, if you combine these inside of a crafting table, you can craft yourself some tomes that you can use to do some magical shenanigans. Basically, you can do different combinations with some of the books by just going, let's say 4 left clicks and you get a special leap and other things on those lines. It's a really interesting origin that allows for a bit of plain fun. You do have a bonus inventory extension, but be wary, if you do die with stuff in that extra inventory, most of the stuff in there will disappear unless it's magic related. So have fun. Next we've got Sensational Sun with the origin known as the 𝓵𝓷𝓷𝓴𝓼. Now, the very basics of this origin is effectively you're just a man who likes electricity. You're filled with electricity. Your attacks can be charged with electricity and other things along those lines. One of those more standout abilities is basically when you're running around, you'll charge up this electric bar. Whenever you run around for long enough periods of time, not only do you get slightly faster the more you run around for, but when you do hit a mob next, your next attack will also induce a lightning strike upon whomever you just struck. Pretty cool. Then we got 𝓵𝓷𝓷𝓴𝓼, I think that's how to say the guy's name. Now this is the other person who's put out a lot of origins over the past month. I picked up on that fast sooner. There was a lot of origins from them and started avoiding them because I didn't want to have all the origins be one person, but then you saw the original 4 at the beginning of this video, so didn't quite work out. The one that I thought to feature from this guy is one called 𝓵𝓷𝓷𝓴𝓼. Now, one thing I will definitely say here, bit of a trigger warning if you go to look in depth on this origin. Now, on the actual Discord server itself, the message with this the triggering thing of a certain item starting with the letter S and those type of tendencies, is kind of got a spoiler filter on it, so you don't actually see it unless you want to, but it's basically you're some psychotic maniac, effectively, as an origin. You can pretty much figure it out from there. Then to finish off this list with a far more simpler origin in comparison to all the big ones from this video, we've got an origin from Dan's other clones called Goatfolk. This is a single impact origin and simply it pretty much gives you some of the abilities of a goat. Whenever you're running around for a long enough period of time, you'll be able to charge up your speed and you'll start sprinting around a lot faster. You also have a leap as well as a few other little tiny bits and pieces. Either way, what are your thoughts on these collections here? Do you want me to do any videos on any of these ones here, or do you have other origins you want me to make a video on in the future? Either way, if you did enjoy, make sure to hit that like button down below, make sure to subscribe, and I'll see you on Monday with another origin or next month for another list. Bye bye!